Okay, so in this video we're going to look at the process of creating a rubric and attaching it to an assignment. This is something that's new in Moodle 2.0, and it can be a really helpful way for you to provide feedback across the different dimensions of an assignment with a relatively low amount of work. So good feedback, low amount of work is a good thing. Right now, the only activity that you can attach a rubric to is your lesson. But remember, you can, I'm sorry, is your assignment, but you can have assignments that don't have any submissions. So you could have a student hand in a paper offline and still grade it with the rubric. Anyways, let's look at setting up that rubric. So I'm going to add an assignment. I'm going to give it a name. So this could be called my Kindred paper, and this is where I would describe the paper. Usually what I'll do is I'll just cut and paste right here from my older handout that I used to give that describes the paper and things like that. I got to do all the availability, the due date, when I want to stop accepting submissions if I want to. But where the rubric is found is under grade. And you'll see that normally it's set to simple direct grading, which means I'm going to give it a score. So let's say I'm going to have it be a 50-point assignment, and I'm going to switch it to rubric. Okay, so now that I've switched it to rubric, when I do save and display, I'll get a different window, and the window will be the rubric window. So it'll give me two options. Oops, I got to give it a description. There we go, save and display. And I'll see that I have two options. One is define new grading form from scratch, or the other is create a new grading form from a template. So let's start by talking about defining a new grading form. So I'm going to click on that. And you'll see that here I'm naming the rubric. So I might say this is my rubric for short papers. The description would be for me, so I'm going to say use this for all short papers. Okay. And this is basically my rubric. Now I've got three different things. One is my in the box, so this is where I click to add the criteria. I might have a criteria called organization. And then this is the levels, so this is where I would click the lowest description of that organization level. So here I might say poor or organization. And obviously, the better the rubric, the more descriptive I'm going to make this, but you get the point. I'll call this average organization. And again, you're going to say more than that. And this is the points that you're giving. Now it's interesting that a rubric doesn't have to equal the points that the assignment equals. So what I usually do is I'll make my rubrics out of 50. So and then it's gonna do the percentage of that rubric. So let's say I give somebody 40 points out of 50 points on my rubric, and then my assignment is worth actually 100 points. It'll give them 80 points out of the 100 for the assignment. So whatever the rubric total is gets proportionally modified for the weight of the assignment. I don't know if that makes sense. It's just that these don't have to add up to be the assignment that I'm using because basically it's going to generate a percentage of rubric points based on possible rubric points, and then it's going to apply that percentage to get the out of the possible assignment points. Anyways, I'm going to define these, and I might say above average organization, you get the point, and then I'll give that 6, and then I can add a level. So this will give me the ability to add more levels to the right. Okay, and here's the delete levels. Okay, so I can delete this, and I'll call this exceptional organization. So after you define each of the levels for this, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to add a criteria. So we use add level to add more boxes to the right, and we use add criteria to add more boxes up and down. So this could be thesis statement. Now what I like about rubrics in Moodle is that you don't have to have the same amount. So I went 2, 4, 6, 8. I might here just do 3, 6, and 8. Okay, and I can get rid of this level. So even though my organization has 4 possible levels, I could have a thesis statement that just has 3. Okay, so you're going to be descriptive in these. And you can assign any points for the points given. It also obviously doesn't have to be even. So you might have 10, 9, 8, and then something like 6 for really weak. Anyways, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add all the points that I want my rubric to be. They don't have to all be 8 points. So maybe quality of ideas, for me, for this rubric, maybe I want that to have a possible 15 points or 16 points. So I'll do 16, 14, and 12. And so it's essentially worth double the amount of these criterion. So I'm going to do that, and when I'm done, I am going to look at these boxes. Okay, there's a couple that are really useful. I think most of these you might as well leave checked. There's a couple things. One, allow grader to add text remarks for each criteria. What that's going to do is when I grade it, in addition to being able to select one of these boxes, it's going to give me a text box on each, to the right of each of my criterion, that I can use to give descriptive feedback about that organization or thesis statement or quality ideas. So I might give it an organization of 2, but then over here I can say you only had 1 paragraph for the whole essay, and that isn't ideal. So I can give some feedback besides the rubric. So that's useful. Allow grader to add text remarks for each criteria. Obviously, you want then to show remarks to those being graded. That makes sense. Points for each level makes sense to me. Although if you don't have this checked, it'll still say the description of the criterion, but it's going to generate a score anyways, so you might as well show the points. And the rest of these seem to make sense to have it. Okay, so I'm going to save rubric and make it ready. And here's my rubric. Up, level definition can't be left empty, which I wouldn't have anyways. So I'll just give something there. Okay, save rubric and make it ready. If you save it as a draft, you can come back and edit it later. Okay, so now it's assigned for this rubric, and when people make submissions, I can change them. So I can go through and use this rubric. If I need to change the rubric, okay, I'm down here under the assignment administration. Under advanced grading, there's an option here that says defined rubric. So right now I can't edit this here, but if I realize that I want to change the rubric that I'm using, I can go down to define rubric over here in the assignment administration, and this takes me back to where I was before, and then I can go back and save. So you can always change the rubric once you're in it. Okay, so as it says here, the maximum possible score is 17 points, so that's going to convert it. So that tells me that out of my points that I'm giving for the assignment, it's going to get converted. Okay, over here, you can either delete it, or some of you might have published the form as a new template, which would make it available to other people. And we'll get into that later. So that's how you set up a rubric from scratch, and it's a really useful way to add an assignment feedback that's more than just the points.